Well, thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to get into the newspaper review with our two guests. We have parliamentary candidate for South Tong. I'm talking about Maxwell Lucuto. He's on the NDC end. And the executive director, Dankwa Institute, Dr. Antoinette Chibu-Darko. They are our guests. Both of them join us for that conversation. But we always, as we tell you, this segment is brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. I keep saying, you know, it's a habit here, partly on the side of cost. So people would say, oh, I don't go for medical screenings because when I go there, you look at just this test, they are charging this much and all of that. Well, there's a solution. If you're thinking of your prostate, which you really should take care of, it plays a crucial role. Some would tell you that at some point, if it becomes malignant or something, it can be extricated, taken out, excised, but there is a cost to it. It affects your reproduction. If you're a woman and you don't know of your fertility status, today so many young people are falling to fibroids and other complications when it comes to fertility. And to resolve the matter, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic is saying, if you're coming for screening on any of these, come for free, gratis. You'll not pay anything. Why would you need to take up such an opportunity? So let's all make tracks to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And here's where you can find them. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, if you're looking for them, Kronum Abwehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex. Then there's Takrady and Naji Estates. That's where you can find them. Let's come back to the Greater Accra region. They are in Tema Community 22. Then in Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama, and Zema. If you'd like to call them, and I suggest you pick up your phone right now and give them a call. At least you can drop them a message as well. The numbers are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Just the start of the newspaper review, and we're getting into the salient matters. A lot has been happening. Physician assistants on strike, the latest developments as far as the Cecilia Abnadapa saga is concerned, the Attorney General stepping in, the lawyer for the accused, one of them saying, my client stole nothing. There was nothing there to be stolen in the first place. This is becoming one of those very interesting cases. We'll see how the cookie crumbles in the end. And like I was saying just yesterday, in Rwanda, there is some criticism of what Paul Kagame is doing. It is said, I saw a BBC story alluding to the fact that another one of his children, the third, they say, a daughter, had been appointed as a deputy executive in one of the state institutions. I have my own case with nepotism, cronyism, and all of that. We can read into it, and since it's a problem here, I would say it should be a problem anywhere. Appointing family members directly shouldn't be the norm. But on the other hand, when it comes to corruption-related matters, how has that gentleman dealt with it versus how our president has dealt with corruption? He told us he would treat it with the Anas principle. He waxed lyrical. Today, what do we see? What do we see? In Rwanda, in September last year, there was a case of a certain minister. He was an actor, entrepreneur, among other things. Became a minister. He had become a minister for a while. It's even a convoluted situation, but he was accused of bribery for accepting $5,000. They gave him a hefty jail term. Hefty jail term. And he had to pay about $50,000. That's about 10 times more than, or 10 times of the sum taken. I think if we're going to crack down on corruption in this country, that is the kind of leadership we need. Not the kind we're seeing now. I'm being blunt. And regardless of who's saying this or saying that or who's going to be interacting with me, you know me, I don't hide my feelings. I say it as it is. Especially when you have over 15 billion. It may have dropped from 17 plus billion. But especially when you have over 15 billion in waste, in sums of money that can't be accounted for. From the Auditor General's report, and 99 point something % of that is recoverable, then you ask yourself, what is happening? How do we recover these funds? And how do we, prevent this vicious cycle of going to the IMF every 4 to 6 years? If we did right with the resources we have, we would have no need for the IMF on any level. But we've been there in the past. We are there now. God help us. The British would say God save the Queen initially. Now they would say God save the King. God save Ghana is what I say. Our guests have joined the conversation, and I shall introduce them one more time, and then we cut incisively into the major stories. Parliamentary candidate on the NDC side for South Tong, Maxwell Lucuto, joins the conversation. Max, a very good morning to you. You would have to unmute, Maxwell. Maxwell, you would have to unmute so I can hear you.
Yeah, good morning, Ben.
Great, good to have you. Is that you on the wall? Is that you on the wall behind you?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Hey, ayo, okay. Someday we too will have our photos on the wall.
That's why you become the president of Ghana. Then you have your photos in every office. And
well,
that's
who
the privilege
knows?
of being the president of Ghana.
Who knows? I'm into that, but I think if I became president, I don't know whether I would want my photo on every wall. Some of those things we do, I don't know. Me, this is personal because it's been done in the past, it's done in the present. I don't know about having my photo in every. You're president, everyone knows that. But then let me also introduce the executive director, Dankwa Institute, Dr. Antoinette Chibu Dako. Doc, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Ben, and good morning to all your cherished listeners on Joy.
I love your smile. This is the first time interacting with you, and I am actually excited about it. So, ladies, gentlemen, we're going to get into the papers. But before we do, this is something I do often. I usually like us to pick any salient issue that is trending and talk about it. I'll give both of you that opportunity. You can spend about a minute and a half dilating on any crucial matter. It could be the media budget review, it could be schools under trees, it could be the IPPs and everything that is happening, it could be CC Adapa. Doc, I'll start with you. Any issue at all?
Well, I think this morning my concern has been a lot about how we deal with waste management in the country. Okay. So listening to you kind of said, well, this is a good initiative, and if we should see it replicating, especially along most of our coastal communities, I think I'll be very appreciative, because I, for one, consistently worry about how much damage we have done to our beaches. And for me, I think that if Ghana is really fighting very hard to improve our tourism, and if we look at the amount of revenue that we are raking in from tourism, especially being a country that is stable security-wise in the sub-region, then it means our attraction as a tourist destination would keep going up. And it would really be helpful if we then make a very conscious effort, not as government, but also as individuals, in how we dispose of our waste and how we protect our beaches. So for me this morning, that is an issue that keeps, boggling my mind, that yes, we would build a lot of waste treatment plants. We will go ahead and do everything. But what are we also going to do as individual responsible citizens to ensure that we do something about how we manage our waste? Thank you.
That's brilliant. Yesterday, interestingly, I was interacting with someone who got in touch with me on our tourism, a researcher in the UK, and some of these matters came up. And you got me reflecting on my time in Cuba and Brazil. These economies, you can compare their economies to ours, though Brazil is way bigger. But if you look at the life and everything there, one thing I noticed, their beaches, they try to keep them pristine, for tourism. You get it. If your beaches are filthy, who would want to come there? So that's a crucial point you make. And hopefully we can keep improving till Accra does become the cleanest city in Africa. Thank you, Doc.
We have to work on it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Doc. Maxwell, any quick issue you'd like to run by us?
My problem is that I'm wondering how you'll be able to afford this affordable housing so claimed in the Pokwase and
the Pokwase one.
That is right. Yeah, how many bedrooms would you want? A 3-bedroom, ideally, at your age and stage. I'm sure you need a 3-bedroom, and that is costing how much? About $42,550,000. I wonder how long it's going to take you to be able to pay for such a facility, considering what we have now as a people, and then how much you are paid as a salary worker, and how much your disposable income is, and they still call it affordable housing as a backdrop of the Saglemi being left to rot and to go waste. And we are hearing that they are going to give that to a private developer. I wonder whether the private developer is a magician, so much so that government will not be able to make the money we need to be able to turn things around, but the private developer would be able to make it and sell and make his profit. Meanwhile, we are aware that government is not necessarily in the business of making profit in these ventures. And we as a government have left this Saglemi issue to rot, and we are going to give to a private person, and we have money, and we are going to develop a new enclave in Pokwasi. Of course, they are not mutually inclusive or exclusive. What I mean is that thousands of these affordable units can be built all over the country at the same time. But the moral question everybody keeps asking is that why would you leave the Saglemi to rot? And then we have the moral courage to now go and be starting a new one. And you hear the narrative, they are saying that they have learned from Kufo, they have learned from Mahama, and they are going to do a new thing. What is new in this project that they are going to put across? For me, I think that it is time we call government to order to make sure that our money is not left to go waste in all these circumstances. It is not affordable. I want to suggest that they always take the word affordable out of that. Or is it affordable to you, Ben? Is it at your stage working? Is it affordable? Oh, answer my question. Is it affordable to you?
It will be affordable to some people, but as I sit here, I don't have that kind of money. Definitely not.
You don't have that kind of money, and that is the true situation. So if you are talking about the people that we need to be serving, then I think we are missing the boat. Let's just take the word affordable from the whole thing.
Right, let's put a full stop on that, just because you brought it up. Doc, I don't know briefly what your take is on this matter. I feel aggrieved about it. I do something called Blunt Thoughts on Fridays, and tomorrow one of the matters I'm going to be talking about is this Pokwasi thing. I have seen this all the way through from Kufuor. In fact, I'll go as far back as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah tomorrow and reveal some shocking things to Ghanaians. But why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Development is a continuum. Now, the Saglemi, I used to use that stretch sometimes when I was heading into Togo if I wasn't flying. And I saw what that place was. I saw it recently as well, the last time I traveled to Togo. Now, you look at the place and it is claimed that supposedly party people, NPP party people, have been allowed to go there. They've taken everything, doors, whatever. Let's assume it is not the case, that it's not NPP people. But if we leave something that your money, my money, was pumped into, whether it is corruption-laden or not, if it is corruption-laden, deal with the corrupt. But the edifice must not be left to rot. Wiring has been stolen. Louvers and everything have been stolen. Doors, hinges, everything has been stolen. How can this make any sense? I don't know about you. We can have many housing projects because our population keeps increasing, the middle class and all of that. But the way we've left Saglemi, is this the way to go?
You see, the thing is not just about Saglemi has been abandoned and Saglemi has been left. I think that we've gone through this debate about Saglemi over and over and over again. Now, the government does not invest in projects and programs, of course, just for investment's sake. There should be a purpose and there should be a reason behind the government's investment. Now, the president has said that in addition to the $198 million already expended on the project, government has to raise additional financing of a tune of $56 million to even complete just the off-site construction works. Now, I disagree with the fact that NPP people have gone in there. Yesterday someone sent me a very interesting article. The person said and was comparing two scenarios where a car was left in a very rich and prominent neighborhood, and then a car was also left in a very poor neighborhood. And the person said they wanted to time the number of hours it takes for crime to take place, people to break into the car. In a very poor neighborhood, immediately the car was left. Less than 30 minutes later, people broke in. In a very rich neighborhood, nobody would touch the car until what they did was they initiated some form of crime by breaking one of the windows. And it even went faster. People stole quickly from the car, faster than they even did. The impetus or the incentive for people to go and touch things does not often rely on political dispensation or crowd or anything. Naturally, humans as we are, when nobody is watching you, you want to go and attack and take things. So that is the case where you see Saglemi. When you see people going along the road and scooping gravel that has been left for the road, fixing a road, and then they scoop the gravel at the site, or they steal the copper wires for it that ECG has laid, and etc. It is not about political issues. It is about how responsible we are as citizens. But when it comes to Saglemi issues, so if people have gone and broken in and taken doors and wires and etc., I'm not going to say that we should blame it on a political party as of now. But as a continuation of the project, how do you go into a project where you know you are already going to suffer a loss?
But
the
Doc,
building
Doc,
as it
yes,
is. No. That is something we are not
just a quick point. Just a quick point.
We have tested and asked ourselves the viability of going into this project. A project that so much money has been put in already. There are issues with it both at Public Accounts Committee, the auditors.
So the solution is to leave it like this, claim we're getting a private investor.
Like we are being told that a private investor will come in. Now look, a private investor obviously would want to come and invest in it and sell it at a certain price. Now the same public opinion will cry out loud, government should invest so much in it and now say that this same affordable housing project is now going to be sold at a certain price, which government knows, how do I give it to people when I want to be able to sell it at this price? It's not going to work. So what we are saying now is, should government go and invest so much in it and take it that government is using it to support the growth of housing, and therefore no matter how much government invests in it, they should be able to recoup back what they have put in it? If you divide the 198 million by the number of units there, you see that the houses there are already costing above $70,000, some of them even $90,000. We are already complaining about it.
But it would be better off than some of those we are seeing in the system that are over 100,000 comparatively, if you look at the prices.
2,500. We are complaining about that. How then do we go and have something that sells for even twice that? It's only a private investor who will do it. A private investor selling affordable housing for that. We wouldn't talk about it. We wouldn't complain, because then you are not government. So that it is almost on the government to do it. And that's why government is looking for a private investor to do it. But for government at this point in time, how much budget does the government have?
Doc, if I may,
much money.
Doc, if I may.
$6 million to go and invest and fix problem that was caused by a previous administration.
If I may, and I like the point you make about caused by a previous administration, because that tends to be our thinking. This government rolls on to the other one. And I feel we have to have clauses in our constitution, and including, because I've interacted with chiefs, bosses of the NDPC since NDC's time, MPP time, NDC time, MPP time. The rhetoric is always the same. In confidence, they will tell you, and in fact, I think when Professor Stephen Adey was there, he told me, look, some of these things don't work sometimes because of the politics. So you come in and this and that. Ordinarily, you are saying that a private investor, and you make mention of time. Part of why it has got to the point where if we go ahead now, it will cost so much is because of the time. The time factor. In project management, time is one of those three crucial elements to take stock of. We have delayed so long that now the cost factor, of course, you can't lose sight of what has happened with the CD vis-a-vis other hard currencies and all of that. So we, the government, should be able to admit that it has, in a way, contributed to the problem. There may have been problems from the NDC's end. No one is ruling that out. But is this the solution? If the private investor can do it, government cannot do it, it deteriorated. Of course, once it deteriorates to a certain point, the cost of reviving it, the cost eventually when funds are put into it by any venture capitalist or whatever, is going to go up. It's simple logic. But anyway, let's make tracks on that subject. So
yeah, but Ben,
no, Maxwell. I think we have to make tracks. Let's get into the papers and then we'll take it from there. I gave you a bite on that. I just had to share her thoughts as well. The Daily Graphic. IMF bailout, government meets second release conditions. That story is on page 16 of the paper. Slave trade reparations. AU approves Ghana conference. GCB Bank at 70, testament of banking leadership, Bank of Ghana. Some people, though, will have concerns about the billions we lost in recent times and the 20% that has been added to our debt stock. Gifty Afenyi-Dadzie calls for law to sanitize the media space. That story is on pages 24 and 25. On the back page, Sewage Plants Commission at Ashaiman and Bankuman. Those are there. And I see, an image, of course, you can see the image there of His Excellency, the President. I think, though, and this is always reflective of me, I think we get a bit too happy with I remember, was it the time of when we're launching the FPSO? I think it was at a Mills when we launched the one named after former President Kufuor. I believe there was Nkrumah, and I believe there was one also named after Kufuor. I think we're too happy about I did this and I did that. For all our administrations in this Fourth Republic, we do so little, we give the crumbs to the people, and everything we want to label with our effigies and this and that. I'm not criticizing any specific person. I'm just saying, like I told you, Maxwell, when you started and said maybe my photo, if I became president, I don't think there would be the need for my photo to be in every office. Who in the world wouldn't know that Asemesi is president anyway? And then there's also a 37 military hospital to conduct mass burial for unidentified and unclaimed bodies. Let's get into the stories. I'll give you details and then you can share with me what you think, lady and gentlemen. So the banner headline, GCB Bank at 70, testament of banking leadership. Now, the Bank of Ghana has said it will continue to support GCB Bank PLC to enable it to stay the course of providing banking services to Ghanaian businesses and households. The banking sector regulator said the GCB was key in supporting business, households, parastatal companies, and the government for the socio-economic development of the country. The first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Lucuto, Afari, said this on behalf of the central bank at the launch of the 70th anniversary of GCB Bank in Accra yesterday. Of course, the GCB Bank, with its losses posted recently, it's in quite a tricky spot, and some have said that this is a novelty on the wrong end of things, but we're hoping that there will be a bounce back. Let me quickly move on to page 16, then I'll do a few international stories. Niger is in the picture as well, and I can allow you to both share your thoughts on what you would like to share your thoughts on. IMF bailout, government meets second release conditions. Now, the government has met all the benchmarks of structural reforms for the release of the second tranche of the $3 billion International Monetary Fund support. The benchmarks, commonly referred to as conditionalities, include the development of a comprehensive stock-taking of payment arrears accumulated by all ministries, departments, and agencies, a strategy to rebuild financial institutions and strengthen the financial sector, as well as the publication of an updated energy sector recovery plan. The energy sector, though, in a tricky spot with the IPPs threatening to cut off our supply. And then there is page 17. Parliament must investigate Bank of Ghana losses. That is Isaac Adongo there. The ranking member of the Finance Committee of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, has urged the House to commence investigations into the activities of the Bank of Ghana for losing up to 55 billion Ghana cedis in equity and recording a negative reserve in 1 year. Quoting him, he says, since 1967, if we add all the losses that the Bank of Ghana has ever suffered, it's nowhere near the 70 billion Ghana cedis that it has incurred in 1 year, he said last Tuesday. All right, so let me hold it there before I bring in the international stories. So we are talking about the Bank of Ghana, 70 years, but again, Isaac Adongo and what he's saying about the Bank of Ghana, and we're also talking about the IMF bailout. Quick thoughts. I'll start with you, Maxwell.
Yeah, so it's intriguing for us to hear stories of this nature. And then after that, you see them saying that it's a testament of banking leadership. I don't know what leadership we are talking about. Leadership that drives us into negatives always. Of course, GCB is a bank that's accessible to all of us all over the country. And so if we're able to do things right and we get our acts properly, we'll be able to get the benefits thereof from it. There are other smaller banks. I don't know whether out of competition, they roll out very nice packages, but you go to GCB and you are still stuck. So you see many of the young coming guys who will not be interested in dealing with GCB. But I think that once we are able to turn things around as a country, we'll get good results out of all this. The Bank of Ghana is just at the corner. We see the law they have posted, and then you see some of the expenditure line. And it's so intriguing that even in this crucial moment of ours, that we are looking for IMF bailout. These are some of the things we can do to ourselves. And you see people coming to defend this thing, saying that the cost of petroleum has gone up, and I think the cost of traveling has gone up and all those things. So do we not have a budget line within which we are supposed to do our expenditure? Or because we have to travel, we'll travel at all costs and damn the consequences. I think that when some of these stories are being told to us, it makes us look as if there's no leadership in some of our government institutions looking and tracking the thing. I think we have internal audit agencies in all of these government institutions. What is that way? What do they do? Do they not track the things that are happening for them to know that we are getting somewhere that is not too good for us? Same thing Kenoforiata did for our economy. So many things we said the borrowing was becoming too much, our debt was becoming unsustainable. He wouldn't listen. They kept borrowing until they led us to the ditch. Even in the ditch, we're still saying that we won't go to IMF because we are a proud nation. And today we are beating our chest to talk about meeting conditionalities, and that the second tranche of the IMF loan is going to come, and we are happy, and everybody wants us to clap for them. I think that we are getting somewhere where we are majoring in mediocrity. And I think that as a country, it is time we call our leaders to order and make sure that the right things that we need done are done at the appropriate time.
Okay.
But as for this mediocrity, every day is just rhetoric, stories here and there and all that. We have a vice president who thinks he's the best brain on the block. And all this mess we are seeing are happening under his watch. And he still comes back to beat his chest and tell us that he's the best president, the best vice president we have ever had in the Fourth Republic, and all these things are happening. And he's still the one going around campaigning that we should give him the steering wheel and that he has a new vision to lead Ghana. I think that we are just majoring in mediocrity.
All right. Thank you, Maxwell.
Yes, yesterday I saw that.
Maxwell, we don't have all the time, so when I come to you, just bite-sized, just go straight for the jugular. We can't, else we would not exhaust the issues, and then would. So just wrap up for me, and then we'll move on.
So I want to take a bite on the Niger case. These are some of the situations that result in the situations we see in Niger. Ghana as a country, I don't hope that we'll get to that stage. I just pray and hope that our leaders do the right things at the right time so that the citizens will be happy with the way things are going. When people get angry, unnecessarily angry, these are some of the results we see, like we are seeing in Niger now.
All right.
And I hear Nigeria has cut off their power supply.
We'll get to those stories. They're actually in the Daily Graphic. I'll be getting to them, Maxwell. But definitely, as someone who has seen war personally in Liberia, I keep saying that these bits about civil strife, no one wants to go there. But yesterday, interestingly, Doc, when I interacted with Professor Enning of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Professor Pierre J. Etua, law lecturer, international human rights as well, together with all the others, Professor Vladimir Nchidanso and Seydou Abudu, who is actually president of the Ghanaian community in Niger, they were all talking about the things that create the spark. Governance issues, security-related issues. We're thinking militarization, regime security, human security. If people don't have jobs, if people's economic rights are not being, that is where the trouble starts. Your take?
Yes, thank you very much, Ben. I agree with you, but I also think that we haven't gotten anywhere near Niger got to. Look at their illiteracy levels. It was climbing way above 80%. Their health system was completely broken down. You can't even find a hospital to go to. I have traveled in a sub-region. In fact, I've gone by road all through Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, to Guinea before, and I have experienced those countries, the French dominance in those countries, and the issues that are there have been underlying for a long time. Now, Ben, I teach conflict. I teach managing social conflict and resolution at the university. I've taught it for 7 years. So I'm also quite an expert in conflict. And I see the issues, underlying issues. Yes, I'll be the first person to say governance issues are there, economic issues, and also are also a problem that contribute to it. But you see, there's always a trigger. And in Niger, the trigger, we are nowhere near there. And I don't like it when people start
concur with you. My apologies. My apologies for interrupting.
I don't want us to even talk about that. I want us to look at the structural issues that we are facing.
Right.
That's why, for me, even if we've had to go through global challenges, we've gone through all these issues, and we've seen an economic downtrend. And there's a silver lining in the cloud out there. We see out there that, look, we have even been able to satisfy 6 conditionalities.
But Doc,
you see, it's about the IMF manual. Listen, no, Ben.
No. I just wanted to chip in on that bit, just briefly.
It's about how we then strengthen our economy and make ourselves more resilient.
Okay.
Everybody is happy that you've gone to IMF 17 times. I said this on there, and I keep saying it so many times. But when the situation
but especially when you painted a certain picture, when you paint a certain picture and claim that we'll never go to the IMF, we're proud people, and then the next minute, I mean, every step of the way, it almost appears you are being deceitful. But the point to be made, no one, definitely no one in his right senses wants civil strife. Nobody does that. Especially for people like me. I have seen it. I don't know whether you have, but I have. I have on different occasions. So I am a bit of an expert in the practical sense of it. Okay? As my live stream is going on, I see people sending messages that I am intentionally not reading. Messages alluding to that. Now, you make mention of we're nowhere near that. I don't think Kenya, when was it? 2000 and what? Was it 6 or thereabouts? When they went the way they did with violence. I don't think anyone, at that time, Kenya was hailed as the beacon of democracy and all of that. What happened in Kenya? My point is, we cannot take anything for granted. That is all. And we must do the right things. Like Obama came and said, not strong men, strong institutions. And we don't have that. I agree
with you. And because we can't take anything for granted, that is why we have 275 parliamentarians. That is why an almost hung parliament now is debating everything that goes there. It is onus on our executive, our legislature, and our judiciary to maintain and uphold the institutions and the structures that we've set up. So if we have had to go to IMF for structural reforms, yes, we did say we would never go. What about a civil strife instead of going to IMF? I think any day I'll raise my hands and say, let's go to IMF. Let's eat the humble pie and go back and say that what we said we wouldn't do, we would do it. Because we want to protect the sanctity of our democracy. And we want to ensure that even if that is what we have to do, to ensure that we then go through the macroeconomic stability that would give back our people what they have to do, then I would opt for that. That's my take.
Thank you for those submissions. Let me just wrap with Niger. We've already started the conversation, so we don't have to go back to it. But Niger truck drivers stranded. Nigerian driver Amadou Munkaila was en route to deliver a truckload of onions to Ghana when last week's military coup forced him to do a U-turn and return to the capital, Niamey, as borders closed. Now, he is among scores of drivers stranded in limbo with perishable products, a result of the stiff sanctions imposed by Niger's regional and international partners after the military takeover. But there's also that bit about a no-fly zone and ECOWAS planning the military, trigger the military option. The experts I've spoken to say that will lead in disaster. That is not the way to go, especially on the back of Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso. Nigerian cities face power blackouts. We know Nigeria, as a first step, Tinubu is head, and now as a first step, has cut off power supply to Niger. But I feel sometimes it's like dealing with a recalcitrant child. Sometimes if you're not careful, you rather end up making them more stubborn rather than rehabilitating them. But let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. You can't impose candidate on NPP, Ekufuado says so. Jiba sues AGKNet over DTT platform. I'll be looking at this one just for your quick reflections, gentlemen and lady. 7 grabbed in Cecilia Dapa, $1 million stolen cash. Attorney General orders probe. And Nana pushes for prioritization of women and children. That story on page 6. I'm always fascinated about pushing women's issues to the forefront. And he's talking in this specific bit about climate change and the role of women. And I support that 100%. But on the bit about Cecilia Dapa and the $1 million of stolen cash and all the stories about Nsawa, a funeral money, or it belongs to her brother, or it belongs to that other person, and now it's in court, the AG is wading into the matter, and one of the lawyers for one of the accused is saying, my client actually stole nothing. Starting with you, Maxwell, what do you make of how far we've come on the Cecilia Dapa saga?
Man, I don't expect anything different, especially from this government. When stories like this break, you see multiple institutions trying to take a bite, and at the end of the day, none of them comes out with any positive result. The last thing you will see is that the president comes out to clear the person, and that's the end of the game. It's interesting, and I'm not surprised because from the response the president gave to Cecilia Dapa's resignation, you realize that he stated categorically that he is very confident that at the end of the day she will put through. That means that he has already prejudiced any investigation that is going to go into the matter. Our only hope now may be the OSP. If the OSP has also been pushed to the corner like Martina Midu was done to Martina Midu, then I'm sure our last hope is lost. 2 people more arrested, 3 people more arrested, 10 people more arrested. Now the AG is saying that he's giving an opinion and saying that they should have done it, they should have done it. Why didn't you come to me before going to court? Why should he have been this? Why should he have been that? You hear people saying that if they had gone to him first for his advice, maybe he would have put a big storybook over the docket and it will never be found. But today we've all heard and we've all known what is happening. Let's just hope and pray that the best comes, because this is the biggest scandal of the year. And so if they decide to put their notebooks over it once more, that's left to them. But for us as Ghanaians, we are getting intrigued by the stories that we are hearing by the day. Coming to talk about it being in Sawa, money being paid during the
Maxwell, I think that horse has been flogged. So thank you. Thank you for those comments. Any quick take on that so that we can wrap with some sporting news? And then this one, I think it's worthy of mention. The Business Finder, Ghana to end use of fossil fuel cars by 2070. At least we can aspire to that. There are these electric cars also in the system. And South Africa shock Italy to advance as Brazil crash out. Daily Guide newspaper. Crash out? You're not crashing anything. They crashed out. So let's... I do this with editors because sometimes you should be doing the proper editing. So we're happy for the South African team, the women's team, of course. And Brazil, that's quite a surprise. Your parting comments, and Doc, I would like you to add the bit about Cecilia Dapa. Any quick take as we go?
Yes, please. I think that what I want to say about the case is circumstances and issues lead situations to happen. Things that we are not privy to, I do not like to judge and to call people to book about it. For me, I wish that we would learn. Let me finish.
Quick thought.
I would want us
I beg of you. I'll let you go on. Just a quick thought.
Yeah,
if the NDC had been in power and this had happened, would you be saying the exact same thing you're saying?
I'll say the exact thing. And I think a lot of people know me and how my judgment call is. Okay. What I think is we must learn to let our public institutions do their work.
When the people don't trust the public institutions, what happens?
You see, and that is what I've just said, that we have a hung parliament almost. We have a parliament that should debate all of these issues. And I'm one person who allows this debate to then advise us. We are a growing country. We are not there yet. We have to learn from all of these things. When cases like this happen, I want it to be a mark that strengthens our democracy and our public accountability systems even further so that it doesn't happen anymore. And sometimes I wish that the institutions would then be allowed to operate and do that. But when we keep crying and calling on them, any direction that they take, we criticize them. Any direction that they take, we criticize them. It makes it difficult for the institutions to also do their work. So that's my call on it.
All right. Maxwell, you have about 20 seconds because I've come to you already, but 20 seconds, wrap up with your thoughts. Any comments?
Yeah, so I'm happy. The women work out very happy that Africa is doing so well and that the reggae girls have also ousted out Brazil, while South Africa has also, they say crashed out.
I think it's Banyana.
Italy, say that again.
Banyana, I think, because the reggae girls are, I think that's Jamaica.
Yes, the reggae girls, Jamaica, they pushed out Brazil, and then South Africa also pushed out Italy. And I'm happy that Africa is doing so well. And we can always relate to Jamaica and other stuff like that. And so I pray and hope that we see our African countries. I don't know how far Nigeria will be able to go to, but it's my prayer that we see one African country going as far as we want. That gives us joy. And football is our heartbeat as Ghanaians. And so would want, if we are not there, our African...
I'd like to thank you, parliamentary candidate on the NDC and for South Tone. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Executive Director, Dankwa Institute, Dr. Antoinette Chibudako. Once more, as for Maxwell, I've spoken to him a few times, but it's your first time. I thoroughly enjoyed engaging you on an intellectual level, and I look forward to the next time. Thank you, Maxwell. Thank you, Doc, for joining. All right. And that's our recap of the news review this morning. This message coming through Hudu Abubakar Sadiq says, "Good morning, Ben. Watching you live from Idra Secheduma say, Ben, how can we claim to have turned the corner with this balloon losses from the Bank of Ghana and fuel prices on the rise again?" Well, right before we get into sports, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you free prostate screening, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Just make tracks to them at any of their branches. Across Pintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma Buehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, Tema Community 22, Techiman, Hanswa, Takrade, Anaje State, and of course there's Isiama and Zima. Their call lines 0244-867-068, 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Are you looking forward to some action from the Women's World Cup? We have that and more in sports up next.